Ninja Gaiden is a video game franchise I recently started playing, and I have been having an absolute blast with it. I discussed my thoughts on Ninja Gaiden Black not too long ago, and today we're going to be talking about my experience with the second game in the series, Ninja Gaiden II on the Xbox 360. Unlike the first game, the version that was recommended to me was the original release. To my understanding, this is because it's the only version of the game that sports the brutality and challenge of the first game, and considering how much I enjoyed the first game because of the way it challenged me, I was all for that. And just like the first game, right away I booted up the controller options menu to change the button layout to my liking, and what the hell is this? Seriously guys, this is an insane downgrade from what we had before. Only one alternative face button option and 3 for the bumpers and triggers. I really want to know what their thought process was, because it's very odd to me that they had a fully rebindable controller layout in the last game, only to get rid of that in the sequel. Making the most of a bad situation, I was able to make an adjustment to have block and dodge on the right trigger in order to mimic the placement of the dodge button in the Bayonetta games. On the bright side, I did feel myself getting adjusted to the controller layout a lot faster than I expected. However, I still caught myself frequently pressing the wrong button and getting punished because of my muscle memory. Because of this, I mainly stuck to using heavy attacks, as it was placed on my preferred button for attacking in general. I'm sure I was only able to get away with this because the attack speed in general was drastically increased, which makes combat feel even better than it already did. One of the things I unintentionally neglected mentioning in my Ninja Gaiden Black segment was how insanely aggressive and engaging these enemies are. At its core, this is what makes the combat in Ninja Gaiden so fast-paced, but also ball-crushingly difficult. Fighting even a single enemy can be a struggle sometimes, so having a whole group of them to deal with really instills the get-good mentality in order to overcome these difficult encounters. And as a reminder, this is playing on the hardest difficulty available when you boot up the game, and I do plan on going back and beating the harder difficulties once I go through the rest of the games. And I'm looking forward to that because I've been told that experiencing the games hard in Master Ninja modes is something else, man. Ninja Gaiden 2's combat differs from the first game not only because of the attack speeds, but also in how enemy encounters are set up. They made it faster to kill your enemies by decreasing their health, but increased the amount of enemies you fight per encounter, making the Slaughterfest super chaotic. I heard that the performance issues on the 360 are atrocious because of this, so I'm glad I was able to borrow my sister's Xbox One for both Ninja Gaiden Black and Ninja Gaiden 2. Even then, I still experienced occasional slowdowns when there was an insane amount of enemies and explosions on screen at once, and I could imagine this being even more frequent and annoying if this continued with a fraction of the enemy numbers. There's a reason why this staircase is so infamous, and it's definitely not because of Ryu's hatred for the Stairmaster. I'm sure these performance issues are also a byproduct of the game being way bloodier now, and you're even able to cut off enemies' limbs. Doing so changes their attack patterns for obvious reasons, and is a nice way to shake up the combat by having enemies literally throwing themselves at you. Ninja Gaiden also introduced a handful of quality of life updates, which makes the game, and the combat especially, more engaging and less tedious. There's a quick swap menu for weapons, nimpos, and items, but unfortunately you still have to pause the game in order to use it. I know there's too many weapons and not enough buttons to practically implement a one-button weapon swap, but come on guys, at least give me the option to have 2 weapons to cycle through. Just get rid of the first person button. I literally played the entire game without using it. You now regain gray health at the end of enemy encounters, with red health only being recoverable when using items, getting blue essence, or accessing save states. And yes, save states now grant you a full heal the first time you use it, with additional checkpoints for boss battles so you can jump right back into the fight. And thank God for these updates. It makes for a much better flow state with less interruptions in combat, and the overall combat in general feels less janky, especially with the wall running and platforming. I also felt more incentive to frequently swap weapons and nimpos to better suit a given situation. I miss my Dabilaro, but I was still able to get my Unga Bunga fix with the scythe weapon and its insane charge attacks. The Falcon's Talon was probably my new favorite addition to Ryu's arsenal, and definitely scratched that Wolverine itch I've had since watching that first gameplay trailer a few months ago. And of course, most of the weapons have their own unique way of setting up and executing the sacred Izuna drop. Oh, it's so good! This is also a good segue into what is probably going to be my biggest talking point of the video, and that's how the difficulty balancing of this game is all over the place. The game in general feels significantly easier than Black. At first my assumption was that I was getting better, but I realized that the tools and opportunities that were given to me had very clear advantages. I would frequently run away, and after every enemy in the room gathered toward me, I would pop a Nimpo or two, clear the room, regain my health and Nimpo charges, and progress virtually unscathed. Now that you can Flying Swallow 3 times in quick succession, it was also very easy and safe to spam it with a group of enemies if you ran out of resources. There are still challenging encounters here, but it felt like that was because of the overwhelming number of enemies on screen, rather than the individual enemies themselves being the challenge, with the exception of this piece of shit right here. And because you can dismember limbs and the enemies die faster, you now have more essence to do quick ult charges or gain health and Nimpo essence if you're in a bind. This isn't necessarily a negative, because the moment-to-moment gameplay was still absolutely fantastic, but it is something that I noticed when comparing it to the first game. It's hard to tell if I liked the bosses more or less than Ninja Gaiden 1. We still have a few stinkers with a fair amount of bosses requiring arrow or Nimpo spam, bosses that once again summon regular enemies, and a boss so notoriously bad that it was removed from all future versions of this game. The one-on-one duels still feel really satisfying. This time around, I noticed you do more damage to them, and they do more damage to you, so you have to be really careful not to get too greedy, or you'll be severely punished for it. I also understand that having regular enemies in the boss fights mean you can use their essence for quick ult charges, but I think I prefer the concept of having a fair duel rather than using that to overcome or even cheese a challenging boss. But even then, it's surprising when you discover just how much you can or can't get away with. And this goes back to what I said about the balancing being all over the place. You have a boss fight with a near instant command grab. We'll set up projectiles into the command grab so it becomes a 50-50 mix-up, and we'll do a tornado spin to negate your Nimpo every time you use it. But then you have a boss that will instantly die if you spam the full circle heavy attack with the lunar staff. Some bosses you can clear close to an entire health bar with a fully upgraded piercing void Nimpo, and I was able to get the final boss stuck in a loop by baiting command grabs and spamming dragon sword heavy attacks until I beat it. Apparently Sigma 2 is a much easier version of this game and pads out the shorter runtime by adding in a few additional levels with other characters. And from what I've been told, 2 Black, while bringing back some features from the original, feels closer to a remake of 2 Sigma instead of the original version. I already thought this game was easier than the first, so I can't imagine what my playthrough of those versions is going to be like, especially if I have to start my playthroughs on normal again. You can probably tell I've spent this entire video talking almost exclusively about the gameplay, and that's because the combat in this game, even in its low points, feels absolutely amazing to experience, while the story once again doesn't do it any favors. Ryu is still his same stoic self, only this time he's voiced by the spectacular Spider-Man. He also jumps all over the place in this game, and it really feels like the brainstorming ideas in the writer's room revolved around Ryu doing cool action character things in various iconic cities around the world. We start the game in Tokyo, go to New York, Venice, your mom's house, and even Florida. As a byproduct, this means that the interconnected Resident Evil-esque world design was also replaced with straightforward and linear levels, which didn't bother me all too much, but dare I say that I actually do miss the light backtracking and puzzles more than I thought I would. I gotta say, I really like the direction they took for Ninja Gaiden 2. The more I hear about the other versions of this game, specifically 2 Sigma, the more I'm glad I went out of my way to pick up and play the original release, even if it is clearly unfinished. It is an insane action game, almost to a fault, but it wears that title as a badge of honor. It's not perfect, but I can see why many people hold this game and this specific version of the game in such high regard. I'm gonna give Ninja Gaiden 2 an A-. Let me know what you guys think about Ninja Gaiden 2 down in the comments, and let me know which Ninja Gaiden game is currently your favorite. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you want to see more content like this from me, you can subscribe and follow me on all of my other social media platforms, all of which house similar content that I have here on this channel. And I'd like to once again give a huge shout out to all of my Grave Gang YouTube members listed here on screen. If you want to be listed on my next video, plus a bunch of other rewards, become a YouTube member today. And if you want to watch another video of mine, you can check it out over on this side of the screen over here. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys next time when we talk about Ninja Gaiden 3. Oh boy!